seems to me that they want to get Cruel, and Cruel is one of Pawn Original's comfortable characters too, where he can play really aggressive and dominate the enemy jungle. So I would like to see Nova ban it, because if they don't, I think they could have a lot of trouble if they give it to Pawn the Original. On the flip side, if they do ban it, Celeste would be open, but regardless, they ban neither, they ban Blackfeather.
Yeah, I think Nova may be expecting that Rogue might be trying to mind game them, because you don't ban the pedal unless you want the Krull, but sometimes maybe you ban the pedal because you want your opponents to think you want the Krull. However, they did want the Krull. They go for it. It makes a lot of sense. Like you said, Pawn the Original, this is one of the heroes he's known for, playing incredibly well. It's going to be the Lance for Nova. That's very likely to end up in Lone Delphi's hands. Back before, like way back before Lone Delphi was even in the Vainglory8, I was a big fan of him playing Lance when he was in Challengers. It was a really strong pick for him. He was able to make a lot of plays happen. And now, if they round this out with an Idris, I think that's a phenomenal composition for the side of Nova.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got that kind of double support style play where you've got two things that are going to be able to protect that hyper carry. And if we talk about hyper carries, Truth is definitely one of these players that loves to go into that style.
And the scary thing for me here is if they let Celeste through, that's the same composition that we saw TSM dominate on in Game 1 versus Stripe. Celeste, Cruel, Lyra. Synergizes very well. You have high range, long range, you have a lot of sustain, and you have the Cruel for peeling. And Lance, if he is the jungler, he can't get all the way through Cruel and Lyra to get to Celeste. So they really need to keep it in mind. And looks like they ran out of time for draft.
All right, so we'll see what the
maybe they couldn't
we'll see what the
decide.
situation is with that. I think we've got a draft bug going on. I do believe.
Yeah, usually it's usually a refresh, and then that takes care of it. But we'll see what happens. Maybe they just finish it off over the.
So apparently it is the Celeste that Nova are going to be locking in to round this composition out. There it is. It's picked itself up once again. And Rogue going to be looking at what they can do to finish off their own composition.
That's a very strong comp from Nova too, because you have the Celeste on the back line with Grace and Lance just there to support her and peel off Cruel from her. It's a comp similar to what G2 usually runs in Europe to just protect Honda. This time it's going to be the Truth of Light doing that, and he's an incredible carry like we just talked about.
Certainly is. I feel like Truth of Light and Hundor have a lot of similarities in terms of their play styles and the teams that play around them as well. We'll see how he's going to do on that Celeste. It's something we know he can be successful on. Now, over towards Rogue, what kind of carry are they going to be looking for? Could it be something like the Scarf coming through?
I would say it almost has to be either Scarf or Idris, because you need to have that late game hyper crystal carry. And going with the Idris is actually, I like it better than the Scarf in this situation, because you want something that can get onto the backlines, onto where the Celeste is. Scarf doesn't have that capability. Everything would have just been body blocked by Grace and Lance. But going with the Idris, you know, he can use the Shimmer Strike and the Shroud Step to jump through and past those frontliners and get onto the Celeste to try and dish out that damage.
While CP Idris can do that, it's going to be very difficult for Rogue to do that against Nova's composition. Lance is going to be there, Grace is going to be there too to protect the Celeste. And Idris and Cruel, they just run at you. They don't have any jumpers necessarily, or like Blackfeather, they can get through your CC. They just run at you. So if they had went for the Scarf, they at least would have been able to fight the long range game. And with Lyra, they would have been able to sustain up. But they did go for the CP Idris. I think it's going to be a matter of getting ahead mid-game, and then late game, make sure CP Idris does the damage.
Certainly, once we get to the late game, it's going to be kind of a skill matchup on how well these teams can execute. It's time to get on into things. Hashtag Vainglory8 on Twitter to let us know who you are going to be supporting. But it's time to get into Game 1 of Nova Esports going up against Rogue.
Well, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, we have loaded into the Halcyon Fold, and we have this incredible series ready to go for you. Nova versus Rogue. And Kieran, we got some fun things happening. We're going to have a little jungle Lance here.
Yeah, little jungle Lance coming through. That's very interesting. Taking a leaf out of Dark Potato's book, it seems like, for Lone Delphi. Again, gives them a little bit of early game aggression. Ganking is very important right now in VG2 because of, again, the lack of sustain. I love Starboy just zoning off away from this Elder Trio. And Truth had to burn that healing flash just to keep himself alive to take that. But again, 2-minute cooldown at the start of the game shouldn't get punished too hard, you would hope anyway.
No, he had to know that that was going to be that close, but man, he was walking the line there.
The combo between Grace and Lance is pretty good as well. You slow down that target for the Impale. Big rotation coming out from Rogue, though, looks like they are just going to sort of wander back towards lane. Truth going to continue to push this lane up. I do agree with Iraqi. You're not going to see CP Idris functioning like a weapon power Idris, not trying to dive in there and get on top of the Celeste. But a lot of the way that you play the ranged CP Idris matchup against the Celeste matchup is finding ranged positional advantage and using mobility from the sigils and also your own mobility to get into a position where you're at least in basic attack range. Wait a second, though, because Pon actually found his way to the backside of the jungle onto Lone Delphi, but Lone Delphi's found his own target.
Yeah, Lone Delphi's doing okay. He was able to pop the flash. Now Evo pops his own. He's got the sigil. He should be able to get out of here. Lone Delphi actually threw a flare and scouted Pawn out, but Pawn was able to get onto him and apply a lot of damage. So a lot of really nice cheeky things coming out of these guys early on. You can tell they have a very good idea of what to expect out of each other. Delphi's in deep, and all of Rogue have dropped in here. They could have surrounded him, but they'll just go ahead and take the mids there. They secure that. They're going to secure their back. So a nice rotation out of Rogue.
Yeah, good cool head from Delphi as well. Actually brought Hammy out of lane, allowing Celeste a free back. She's even now going to be able to go towards the jungle and share some more experience and gold with Lone Delphi here. Because they were able to push that wave in, because Lone Delphi drew Hammy out of lane, it's a huge amount of time to allow Truth the opportunity to share this experience in gold with Lone Delphi. Not something that you would usually be able to do if you were sort of having an even lane matchup and Truth was just pushing things up as or Truth was getting pushed in normally like he would do. He's now going to get back to lane and get that whole wave as well. So all from that sequence of events. Yeah, all from that sequence of events.
And the Impale will land on the Hammy, but he's doing just fine. You see the minion candy actually coming out of Evil here in the lane of it. He was trying to shove that lane up as quickly as possible, but Starboy, he did such a good job to hold that lane.
Yeah, really did, and that's something that Grace can do. She can slow down that wave, she can sort of bring it off to the side as well, and you've got that damage reduction coming out from your Holy Shield also. And let's be honest, the damage output of a CP Idris and a Lyra at this stage of the game is not a huge amount, but wait.
Impale's going to land on the Hammy, the core collapse as well, the Heliogenesis, the basic attacks, he gets knocked back to the wall out of Starboy, and first blood for Nova.
That's the gank sequencing between all of those Nova members. You have the Impale to the Holy Nova, you've got the Benediction slow, core collapse, the chain CC from this composition. If you land it onto a target is incredible. And remember, Pon has got to walk through all of that to even threaten Celeste. And if they can catch Hammy out, that's what kind of destruction can be sort of wrought by this Nova lineup. Rogue, however, they do have their own equivalent late game scaling. You know, you've got CP Idris scales just as hard as a Celeste does, but albeit a little bit more versatile in his positioning, but maybe a little less so in his flat out burst damage. You'd say that Celeste has probably got greater burst damage than the CP Idris does, and also better range has the Celeste, especially post level 8. That'll be something that I think Rogue will struggle with, because it'll kind of force their hand, maybe force them to play a little bit more aggressive in these team fights, and it won't allow them to find the exact correct positioning to be able to navigate their way through the ridiculous amount of CC and sort of peel being brought over by this Nova composition.
I really like this. The mind games out of both of these teams is really good. Impale will miss out of Delphi, tries to land one up in the lane, but upon the original just making his rotation through, he just popped out into the lane. It forces flares out into the mustache brush, of course, from Starboy, but he wasn't even there because he was already gone. But he's just playing the mind games like, hey, I'm here and I'm out.
Interesting that this composition actually reminds me of the kind of Arden, Lance, Jungle, Baron compositions that we used to see maybe 3 or 4 months ago when Baron was in a really strong spot in the lane. I don't know if it reminds you of similar here, Humanist, but definitely feels like, you know, it's very much a Protect the Celeste composition in its entirety, and that reminds me of those Protect the Baron compositions that we used to see come out as well.
I feel like it will become Protect the Celeste comp, but I mean, let's be real. This Lance is going to actually do incredible damage.
Oh, yeah.
The Kroll, if he doesn't have barrier up, if he lands on an Impale and an attack onto the Idris, I mean, even the Lyra, you know, they're going to have to be incredibly careful. There's a lot of burst damage to come out on this Lance. And you said, you know, is he taking a feather out of our, you know, you said something like that of Dark Potato's book here. Delphi was like one of the few Lance players to make me like break the audio system a couple seasons ago.
Yeah, I mean, if you were going to have a jungler from North America, it's just that Delphi hasn't played it a huge amount recently. He's been more on that Samuel hype train. So it's just nice to see him bring it back up, whereas Dark Potato has stuck to that lance, you know, every given opportunity, even at the Unified Lives, we saw him play it. I love that by a little bit of micro decision making from Truth that was really good. He was very aware that Pon was level 6. He played a super defensive position behind his turret and now is invested into the reflex block. So, you know, he's very aware of what a level 6 crew can do to snowball things out of control. And I really like the sort of safe way that he approached the laning phase there to not allow Pon the opportunity in that top rush to find a From Hell's Heart onto him.
Now, Rogue have dropped down as 3 onto the gold miner, but this means the Nova are going to be able to sniff it out. If they had left 2 in the lane, maybe Pawn could have done some work by himself. Solar Storm's going to come down from the top. A nice impale attempt coming out of Delphi, but they're too late, and Rogue able to claim that. So a nice objective picked up for Rogue here. Now Nova as 3 are up in the lane. I mean, I don't think they really want to get into any significant skirmish unless they land with an impale where a core collapse can follow.
Yeah, if they can chain their CC together, they have a really powerful mid-game composition, but if they can't, it's better off just waiting till you get level 8 on Celeste and playing the late-game Celeste build, and it seems to be where they're going for. Delphi building towards a Sora Blade, however, so he's not done with his damage output just yet, so he will always be a significant damage threat in some way, shape, or form. You know, we know how much damage that Lance can do with this build. It's a slow attacking build, all about the sort of the burst damage that can come through. I do like what Rogue did, though. They realized that if they're going to focus so heavily on rotating with Celeste to farm, we're just going to sneak this gold miner away. We're either going to force them to react and maybe we could take a fight, or we just get a gold miner for free, and that was really good from Rogue.
One of the things also I like about the Lance into the Rogue composition here is when Lyra throws down a sigil, if people need to heal, they gotta sit on top of the sigil. And it makes it for a really easy target to just land like a double impale. Whoa, the Arcane Bastion, Bright Bulwark down. They're trying to play some games. Truth, he takes a ride through the other side. This is gonna be a boomerang. From Hell's Heart connects onto Truth. Truth gets the Divine Intervention. Can he stay alive? No, he cannot. Pon will be able to take that kill. Evil did a great job to keep his team healthy through that fight. He'll throw another sigil out, and Rogue start to bear down onto the first turret. It's Delphi with a combat roll back, trying to apply damage, trying to buy time for his turret. And it looks like for the meanwhile, he's actually done so.
Yeah, Truth is now back up, but they've got one more minion wave to work with here. Rogue looks like they're going for it.
Yeah, Rogue, they're committing. They're going to actually take the turret quite easily. Bright Bulwark down again. Starboy, he's got to move back. Pawn's on top of him. It's going to be Truth with a defensive core collapse. Pawn's there, activates the Spectral Smite. And he's able to find that kill onto Lone Delphi. Very nice plays. I'm very impressed with Pawn here early on in this game.
I mean, he's playing Cruel, dude. Pon the original's Cruel is one of OGs. He's very, very, very good Cruel player, and you can see it right here. Knows exactly that smite damage necessary to take the people down. And already Rogue opened up with a very aggressive engage, and I think that's what they needed to do, because remember, you know, the later this goes is a little bit like the problem that the Tribe roster had up against TSM earlier, that, you know, you play too long against the Celeste without a clear direction in how you're going to deal with her once she gets that extended range, the worse you're going to be. They knew that if they just portaled that Cruel in there, he provides the distraction necessary to allow Idris to get a good positioning on that Chakram or into position to start basic attacking the Celeste. They played it really well. But maybe, I don't know if it was positioning or a little bit of luck on their side, but unbelievable use of the boomerang on the Hell's Heart, pinpointing out Celeste as she accidentally ran through the portal as well. That was really nice. It's hard
to go wrong with a nice boomerang when things get sloppy like that. But yeah, obviously connecting onto Truth was the ideal target there. Pawn, clear out that scout trap for me, bud. They already rotated his 3 through that bottom shot rush on the left side. And he's hanging out there as well. So a lot of vision coming out. Starboy happy about that scout trap placement.
Over now, just need to try and turtle things up. One thing that we really saw from the Unified Western Lives was how much Truth really appeared as a superstar. This new sort of young player on the scene. Haven't really seen a huge amount of him. We saw a kind of inklings of him becoming a god in challenges. Wait a second.
Forward, Bright Bulwark, core collapse comes down, but they're taking a lot of damage. Starboy is the focus thus far. Pawn, he switched target. He gets stuns up though. Truth trying to kite back. Truth getting a lot of damage against the heal, and he's able to stay alive. They turned it around. Hammy dropping low. They've gotten Hammy as well. Evol on the run as he watches his carry and jungler get melted in front of them. Oh, that's hard to watch. The Lyra doing everything she could to keep her teammates alive there, but that engagement absolutely backfired.
Well, okay, 2 reasons for that. Truth to God. Second reason that you portaled in to a corridor where Lance is just going to absolutely have a field day. Githian walls right there were absolutely insane. Everybody portaled through onto a core collapse that was so wonderfully placed by Truth, and then the Githian wall came through. By that time, Truth had repositioned to a point where he was able to get a very heavily funneled Solar Storm off with that Eve of Harvest right now, giving him so much HP back, Humanist. Just really nicely timed sequence of events, and just some beautiful mechanical play from Truth, just as we were talking about what a kind of almost young star that he's turned out into after the Unified Western Live Championships. And I've got to say, Delphi making use of terrain. Sweej always used to say about Lance, never fight Lance in corridors. Well, you know, it doesn't look like Rogue really held that one into account.
Was Sweej the one that said that? I thought Iraqi Zoro was the one that always said that.
Well, Rakizari is now Sweej, so...
I'm just kidding. Just playing games. Pawn, he's going to get slapped back from Lone Delphi with the Githian wall. You're right. Delphi had some nice Githian walls there. And they got to be careful where they're taking these fights in the map. Sometimes you see a juicy target like that Celeste out and you think you can just pop her, but yeah, Truth with the core collapse and everything was so nice there. Also, you got to give credit, of course, to Starboy, who was able to just hold the positioning in that fight in such a way that Kroll really didn't want to let off of him and onto the Celeste. You saw how much damage Starboy actually took there.
Starboy actually has had some really good timings of his divine interventions as well.
Another portal in. There's the engage. A core collapse blocked off this time. They're on to Truth. Truth, he gets the divine intervention. Healing, he's able to stay alive through this, walks through the portal to the other side. Solar Storm.
He's still alive!
Second divine intervention. I didn't even see the echo come out. A double kill for Truth. And Nova turned up to the roof. Is they're up now 5-2, 12 minutes in here. The echo completely turning the around. Starboy still has his fountain.
He's still got his bloody fountain, Humanist. He's wonderful use of the echo from Starboy. Oh my goodness, and Truth again with a very clutch ultimate to help boost that healing onto himself. Supernovas. I mean, look, you're fighting Celeste and a Lance in corridors. What they want to find, they want to be in this kind of terrain. Supernovas are much easier to hit onto multiple targets when you bundle into these small enclosed spatial areas. And you saw how much healing those supernovas were actually churning out for Truth very early on in combination with that divine intervention. Remember, divine intervention reduces damage taken by 40% at its base value. Then gets the healing afterwards. In that time, you've got the Eve of Harvest supernovas churning HP back for Truth. It's very hard to kill Celeste when she's getting these multi-man regenerations as well as that divine intervention use. You need to be a bit more open with your engages. You won that engagement in the lane because it was very hard to land multiple skills in on multiple members because you were also split up. You had more space to work with. Every time they've tried to barrel in a corridor, they've lost.
Yeah, but they haven't seemed to slow up off that strategy yet, so it makes me feel like there's something to it. Nova as 3 will move forward here. You can tell that they have a clear idea of what they're looking to accomplish, rotating as a very clean unit, clearing out some vision. A lot of flares coming out from both sides, keeping track, keeping tabs of their opponents, not wanting to be surprised at this point, but Nova, with just a very simple rotation as he pushed the lane forward, dropped down towards the shop. They've cleared out 3 scout traps, and that's a huge win for them in and of itself.
Nova now, again, just scaling up 4 items on Truth, reflex block there. This is his maximum offensive capability on board now. This is not where you want to see a Celeste without having a serious advantage against her. And we know how well Truth has been playing mechanically as well. Nova have really come into their own as a team. They really outperformed, I think, what everyone expected. Wait.
From Hell's Heart, Starboy's going to be stunned up. The passage forward, the Bright Bulwark down. Can they take Starboy? Divine intervention onto himself. Now it's Truth trying to find the damage. The Helio's going Supernova. They're able to take Cammy down. Now looking for more. Delphi's going to boot forward. He's got to get the wall. Knocks Evil back. Doesn't find the stun, but they find the damage. So Delphi will pick himself up another kill there. The weapon infusion out for Delphi. Just doing work there. It was just the tension bow that Sorrow played right into the Aegis. And there's so much damage output still from this land.
Yeah, and I think also what was really important in that fight there is that they landed the From Hell's Heart onto Starboy. Immediately, Rogue was split in decision-making between, do we focus the Grace because she's unable to move, she's got a very low base HP and actually quite squishy. Pond's going to have to be careful here, but I don't think anything's going to come of it. Or do we jump onto Truth? It felt like Hammy wanted to go onto Truth because there wasn't a Grace to save the Celeste this time with the Divine Intervention. And it looked like Pond wanted to go onto Grace because he thought if I burst her down, then it's going to be a 2 versus 3. I think the correct decision was to go onto Grace, but they didn't actually coordinate their efforts properly. And then a good Githian wall from Lone Delphi bought time for that divine intervention to pop off, and that obviously kept Starboy in the running. Really, again, wonderful play from Nova, but maybe a little bit of miscommunication and miscoordination coming out from Rogue there.
Yeah, they're going to have to clean things up because it's going to get harder and harder. Pawn, he's in deep on the backside. Core collapse, doesn't quite connect. Hammy, the basic attack's coming out. He's looking for the Shockman as well. It's going to be the root onto Pawn. Pawn moving back because he took a lot of damage there. He was able to pop his healing flask. We'll keep him alive and healing up. He's going to come run with the boomerang, but it doesn't quite connect. His Truth has the nice positioning there. Helio's like, everyone heal! The Supernova connects. Able to take Evil down. Now looking for more. Hammy, what can he do? Trying to dance around the fight. Pawn jumps in on Truth. Hammy, he's on the Starboy. Starboy with the Divine Intervention to the Truth. Pawn stays on target. Spectral Smite buying a bit of time. Hammy left for dead. Hammy with a Shiver Strike. Well, I don't think that's the place you want to be. He's able to get a kill himself, but that will be the ace for Nova. And ladies and gentlemen, that will be a Crystal Sentry and a turret taken about simultaneously. This team's on fire.
Oh man, they absolutely are humanist. Multiple things kind of started to go wrong for Rogue in that fight. They were looking for a flank play, and it was obvious that Pon wasn't willing to spend his ultimate to try and burst someone on the front line out. He was obviously looking to get onto Truth in kind of a surprise factor. The unfortunate thing was, Nova weren't surprised. They were very, very aware that there was a Cruel trying to get behind him, and they were peeling backwards, providing a barrier for Celeste. And then, something that Truth does, and a lot of Celeste players at the top level will do this, but it's really worth pointing out. When you're being threatened by someone like a Cruel, Truth doesn't kite away from the Cruel. He kites back over the Cruel onto the top of his existing heliogenesis to ensure that if Cruel wants to stick to him, he's going to land a supernova. That's a really sort of micro point about Celeste players and how they kite against some of these melee threats that always threaten them. I really, really like that Truth is obviously doing this continuously. It's really nice, clean Celeste play.
Super clean Celeste play at this point. Also, Evil just not really tanky enough to deal with the supernovas coming out at this point. We saw him just get chomped down. I was about to say the Helio was doing tons of work before the supernova came through and killed him. It's really hard for him to stay in through these fights. Not the tankiest, but he can sustain his team. Arcane passage forward, bright forward down, they're going on Truth one more time. Core collapse, they find a stun, the gifting wall as well. Pawn dropping low, Evo as well. The Fountain is going to come out. The Shimmer Strike from Hammy. Hammy dancing around, trying to fight the damage. Kills a lane minion right in the middle of it all. Core collapse comes down. Hammy is just toast in the dirt at this point. Pawn's going to try to come around with the boomerang. It's a self-divine intervention out of Starboy. Lone Delphi finds the impale, the damage, and it's going to be a double kill on the backside for Truth. Well, actually, Pawn stays alive. He's able to take Starboy. I flipped the camera back over there. Forgive me, scoundrel. Pawn's still playing games, but this looks like it's going to be the end here. What a cruel. Delphi just buying time over here on this land. Solar Storm's going to come through. It cleans him up for the ace. Truth just right down the center, throwing the strike with that Solar Storm. And this is going to be Nova taking game one in style.
I like the way that Delphi basically said he wasn't going to kill Pon. He could definitely have killed Pon a lot more quickly there, but he knew by delaying the death timers, it gave him the best opportunity to keep Truth pushing with that Kraken to win the game. Iraqi Zora is right. You needed to win the mid-game here as Rogue. You have a Cruel, kind of a mid-game god. They had the opportunity. We saw a couple of glimpses of those winning fights in lane, but they needed to take hold of the mid-game and run with it. They kind of lost their momentum, and that allowed Nova back into the game.
Yeah, that was a tough game. The double Atlas Pauldron out of